Madam Deputy President, as the eldest son of relatively young parents, I was fortunate enough to know and build relationships with all four of my grandparents. This was a great privilege for me, and I'm very lucky to have shared special moments with all of them. It also means I've been very aware and very involved in their final days, some of which were extremely difficult. Death is not something we spend a lot of time talking about because it comes with a level of awkwardness we're not comfortable with. It's certainly not something I imagined talking on in one of my earliest speeches in this place. But in this debate, it can't be avoided. I'm not going to go into the deaths of all my grandparents, but I did want to talk about one of my grandfathers who on a Sunday afternoon was doing what he loved, selling a horse to a lucky new owner. Unfortunately, that evening he came down with a chest infection, which saw him in hospital that night, then dead by the next afternoon. Before this time, he'd expressed great anguish about some of his generation's suffering in their final days, including that of his own brother. Now, we lost Jim, I reckon, 3 or 5 years earlier than we were expecting, and probably earlier than he was ready to go. But he was a bloke that always preferred a bird in the hand. So if he had to go, I reckon if you put that death on the table as an option against a long, protracted and undignified suffering, he would have taken it. But Madam Deputy President, not everyone is that lucky. Throughout this debate, we've heard some very personal stories about heartbreaking deaths. Long, painful deaths, difficult on those dying, their carers and their families. Stories that bring a tear to the eye. And I don't believe a practical person like my grandfather would have a problem with these people in these terrible situations from having a choice as to how they ended their life. Having a choice and having control. And in regional New South Wales, I don't think he's alone. The majority of people I've spoken to about this are not opposed to well-managed voluntary assisted dying. Not necessarily advocating for it, but at the same time, they would not want to deprive the suffering and terminally ill of that option. The experience in Victoria, 2 years since the introduction, suggests that the process can be well managed, and it's only been accessed by a small number of cases, those who qualify as being in genuine need of relief. Many years of debate on this issue have refined and improved what we see here today, a bill with a series of considered protections and safeguards. It's comforting to know there are a number of points along the way where the voluntary nature of requests are tested to be sure that it remains indeed voluntary as well as enduring. As others in this place have stated, this is not, nor can it be, a debate about assisted dying versus palliative care. And while the level of palliative care we have in this state is actually pretty good, of course we can do better. And I'm pleased this has been acknowledged by the Premier in this debate, also recognising that access to a dignified end of life should not be affected by where you live. I support the Premier on this, and I look forward to working our palliative care, especially in our regions. Madam Deputy President, this is obviously an issue that people have a very personal relationship with. While I'm aware this bill has aspects that make some people uncomfortable, I believe it provides a way for people to choose a dignified death over a long, protracted death full of pain and suffering. And finally, I'd like to commend those people who I've dealt with on this matter from all sides of the debate. The dealings I've had have all been conducted in a very respectful and gracious way, and I thank all honourable members for their conduct.